But just take a look at this.
What's up, people? Today we're going to take a look at Event Horizon's 1993 hidden gem, Veil of Darkness. Veil of Darkness follows our protagonist, Smuggo McPilots, as he crashes into a valley of Transylvanian cliches. Can he defeat your typical host of werewolves, zombies, and vampires? Maybe, maybe not. That depends on your ability to deal with very retro standards of puzzle solving. But if you can moon logic your way through it, then this might be the game for you. Let's check it out. Let's drop down the historical documents first. Event Horizon Software, that would later be known as Dreamforge, went through a weird period from 1992 till about 1998 when they paired with SSI, who was much more known for their gold box games of D&D. Event Horizon developed a D&D adjacent game in 1992 called The Summoning, which used the same isometric engine that Veil of Darkness uses, but it was a much more stando dungeon crawling fantasy experience. Event Horizon, which would later become Dreamforge, has a kind of funky history as they would continually jump back and forth between the Gothic setting and the medieval setting, doing the popular Ravenloft series in the Gothic setting, doing Anvil of Dawn in the medieval setting, but mostly they would stick to a first-person standard dungeon crawler. It's only The Summoning and this game that use the isometric perspective. There was, however, one exception to this rule. At the end of their tenure as a developer, they released the iconic game called Sanitarium, which was one of the only pure adventure games to be set in an isometric engine. This game, with its creepy settings and ultra dark themes, has kind of cemented its way into our cult followings across the communities. So as we wake back up into the world of the Veil of Darkness and meet our heroine here, we'll call her Deidre McDamsel, does Veil of Darkness hold up as a cult classic in the isometric world of adventure gaming as much as Sanitarium does? Well, we'll look at some of the things that holds it back as we take a gander what was happening in behind the scenes around this time in history. Okay, maybe we shouldn't go that deep behind the scenes, but to understand Veil of Darkness, you have to understand some of the stuff happening in 90s game development. The 90s were still a time long before the AAA gaming corpos had completely flushed the imagination out of game development. There weren't as many chart guys telling what could fly and what not, so we got a lot of these hybrid projects, one of the most infamous being Quest for Glory. That was a hybrid of combining adventure games with hardcore statistics. Quest for Glory series and many others kind of hybrided the two genres. You would have your typical point and click sort of adventure inventory, but you'd also have a series of stats that you could grind and roleplay to develop in combat by other means that were more puzzle based. Ironically, Event Horizon Software have seemed to already figured out the perfect balance to mixing adventure and RPG games with The Summoning. However, when Veil of Darkness rolls around, the game seems to struggle a little bit. And now we will awkwardly transition into the parts of this game that I thought were the weakest. So let's look at those weak points and see where they fail the hardest. First and foremost, we're going to talk about combat. While The Summoning had a fairly decent statistical backing to its RPG elements, this game has nothing. There's no grinding to make your strength higher. You're not rewarded by combat, by animals that drop loot. You're not rewarded by anything. More so, every single beast takes a different type of weapon to harm it. So you have to do a lot of inventory juggling. So in most cases, it's better just to avoid combat entirely. Secondly, this game is going to hit one of my biggest pet peeves, which is maze running. Now, this game is nice enough to give you an auto map, which completely makes the aspect of being in a maze pointless, because all you're really doing is just checking your auto map every 5 minutes and filling in the gaps. So it's not even really being in a maze as much as if it's tedium. Again, like I just said, the combat's joyless, so you're going to avoid every single monster, which never drops loot and never gives you statistics. So you're just kind of in this maze. Watch how tight some of these maze corners are, too. You're going to go through a room, into a smaller room, into a smaller room sometimes, and it just is a matter of filling in the map, which is crazy. Furthermore, some of these mazes require you to get a laundry list of items. For example, this one you need 5 loaves of garlic from. So here I am picking up 1. I need 5 more. So unless I'm going to go step by step through a walkthrough, I need to clear every single section of this maze until I have all 5 bulbs of garlic. The rest of it is just a matter of extreme tedium. And this is what, unfortunately, most of the dungeons amount to. Let's move on. Number 3 is status effects. I don't like status effects, period. This game definitely did not need status effects. First and foremost, it's hard to find the cures. While herbs are scattered pretty liberally throughout the environment, some of the cures are harder to find, and you might be stuck with a status effect for several hours without knowing how to cure it. What the status effects actually do? Well, most of them make you a weaker fighter, which kind of is, you know, kicking a horse while it's down, or whatever metaphor I'm mixing, making a joyless system of fighting even more so joyless. But I've beat on this game enough like a dead armadillo. Let's look at where this game really shines and what makes it the hidden gem that it is. First and foremost, atmosphere. I get the feels with this old Transylvanian town. I feel like I've been in this bar before. It has a sort of familiar feel, like I had to hit on this leggy brunette before. Huh. Wonder why that is. I'm just screwing around. Ironically, this game definitely seems to turn back on itself, where it borrowed a lot from Quest for Glory 1, but then Quest for Glory 4 seems to borrow a lot from it. I suppose the truth of the matter is both are borrowing from a Dracula retelling. However, just the way the whole game is kind of set up, you're in a dark valley that has gone from a prosperous kingdom to a lot of cursed families. You're trying to undo wrongs that have happened before you came into the valley. You have sick children that you have to save in both games, and you have the friendly gypsies who help you out during the course of the adventure. So maybe some of my love for this game is coming from just feeling like I'm playing Quest for Glory 4 again, but I do love its atmosphere. It does hit all the nice little gothic bells with perfect precision. Another positive about Veil of Darkness is that it does recognize the fact that the fighting isn't great. So it gives you the option to choose whether you want to fight and dungeon crawl to get the extra silver you need to win the game and buy supplies, or if you can collect different herbs for the apothecary. Maybe this also reminds me of Quest for Glory, but I thought it was a nice wrinkle to the game. It does add a little bit more of an open world feel, and it gives it that extra little oomph that gets it over the edge for me. Lastly, I like the way the quest line works out. You're just given this large laundry list of people who've been cursed and are suffering in the valley, and you have a kind of open world feel where you can use this map to go to different locations and more open up as you solve more puzzles and help more people. But overall, this feeling of a cursed valley where all these people have kind of suffered, and you're coming in the middle of everything going on in this valley, and you have this opportunity to kind of solve all these puzzles, to right all these wrongs that have been done. It has a cool feel to it. Again, it draws parallels to the way Quest for Glory 4 was, but to be fair, it's important to note that this game predates Quest for Glory Shadows of Darkness by several years. So what's my conclusion at the end of the day? I think it's a great game. I enjoy it very much as an adventure game. It does not feel as complete as Sanitarium as an adventure game. In the same note, it doesn't feel as complete as an RPG. It doesn't really feel finished at all as a hybrid. The combat just doesn't mix into the adventure overall. There's maybe one or two battles that matter and you have to do, and you can literally avoid everything else. Yet the game throws healing potions and other components at you like, they're going out of style. Weirdly though, I think this game would be weaker without the combat element. Even though it doesn't quite get home, it doesn't have a purpose, there's no stat building, there's no character building, it does add a flavor to the game that would be noticeably absent without. For me, this is definitely a je ne sais quoi sort of thing. The combination of all these elements kind of creates something in the middle, despite the fact that it really hasn't hit a home run with its combat. But the presence of its combat has still given the game a feel of uniqueness, set against all the adventure game elements. The one thing about the adventure game elements that I'm not sure is going to appeal to everyone is a lot of the puzzles are parser based, meaning you will have to read every single word that people say, and despite the fact that they do give you some keywords, you do have to read between the lines and ask people about words that were not highlighted, so it's very intensive into the investigation end of things. But there are some other parts that are just completely lazy, like when you have to find a werewolf, it just, spoiler alert, involves basically typing werewolf and just accusing literally everybody you run into as being the werewolf until somebody admits it. So it's a little bit, give and take in that regard, but this parser feel isn't going to appeal to everyone as well. At the end of the day, I think it earns its hidden gem status. I'd give it a 9 out of 10, even though that's probably a deeply subjective score. I think it's worth a look if you enjoyed this time period in gaming. Check it out. See what lies under the dirt.
Little graveyard humor there. That good one. I like it.
Whoa! This hall is dangerous.